you want to take care of them. I mean, they're at an age, my parents are at an age where, they should be retired, but they're not. My dad isn't. And so like the idea of like me not being able to fully financially take care of them right now is probably one of the biggest regrets. As me being as honest as possible,
Damn.
right? But if I'm being like completely selfish and just thinking about myself, then I have no regrets. Like what's the point of being the richest person in the cemetery? It don't matter, right? Like I've gotten to travel the world doing what I do. I might not make the same amount of money as if I stayed in my former job, but I got to do some crazy shit.
Oh, baby. Have you ever done some crazy shit? Like leave a full-time profitable career to do stand-up comedy? I have not done that, nor would I encourage anyone to do so because one, comedy is hard. And two, if you replace comedy with your passion or your dream, as in quit your full-time job to pursue your dream, like don't ever do that. Not unless you have a bunch of money saved up or you have the big breaks lined up. We might hear stories of someone who, say, quit their full-time job and became the romantic starving artist to pursue their dreams. And they had to, struggle for years eating ramen until they finally had their big break. I don't think most people need to live that life or go through that thing unless you really enjoy being a starving artist. So the TLDR or the TLDL, the too long didn't listen of this episode today is pursue your dreams or your passions, or however you define that. I mean, I guess that deserves another episode. Pursue your passions, but like don't quit your full-time day job to do it. Like have something lined up. There, you don't really have to listen to the rest of this episode unless you want to hear more about why that is the case. This is part 2, continuing our conversation with Danny Cho, LA born and raised Korean American who quit a 6-figure consultancy job to pursue comedy. It's comedy. It's comic. He's a comic. He hosts the Noonchi Podcast with Bobby Choy. Shout out to Bobby Choy if you're listening. And he does stand-up comedy in Korean and has been fostering the Korean stand-up comedy scene for years now. He's the only Korean American comedian who's doing comedy in Korea in Korean. In part 1, we talked more about identity and culture and what it was like for us growing up in the States as the only Asians in our neighborhood and whatnot, coming to a point where we're just like, fuck it, who cares what we are? In this part 2, we get in raw, deep, and hard about his comedy career path. And if you're an aspiring artist, especially if you're a stand-up comedian, like someone who wants to pursue stand-up comedy as more than a hobby, then you should really listen to this episode. We also talk about the very important issue of wanting to pursue a certain career, like say being an artist or a stand-up comedian, at odds with your parents' expectations. I guess that in any developed society, this is going to be an issue, but this is especially true for immigrant families like mine. Like our parents' generation expecting us to become doctors and lawyers and pursue profitable, stable career paths. Since they worked and sacrificed so much to bring us to America or to the West or whatever to give us better opportunities. And then we want to do music. We want to paint or do graffiti. Oh, we want to record albums where we sing about our feelings. Oh, I want to go on stage and tell jokes. Meanwhile, our parents' generation is like, how can you make the money? We are getting old. You're supposed to provide for us. We escape Asian country with disaster, dictatorship, communism, famine. Your mother, your father escaped to America, Canada, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand. For you to have better opportunity, why you no become doctor or lawyer? Or you want to tell the joke? You think life is a joke? You think this funny, motherfucker? Yeah, you a shit. Come here. I beat the joke out of you right now. I beat the joke out of your asshole. 주여. 니 빙빠, 꾼, 저리가. Get out of here. You bring great shame to our family. Very, very dishonorable. Insert your own faux Asian accent of your parents here. To be completely fair to my parents, they were never like that with me. Because I was always the baby. I was the youngest of 3 sons by 10 years. So my parents were way more lenient with me. They were always kind of like, do your own thing. I think they were way harsher on my brothers who subsequently became doctors. Shout out to all my doctors and medical professionals out there. who bring great pride and honor to the family, not like those useless artists and stupid standing comedy people. Ah, 참나. And the worst of all, I hate those stupid podcast people. How you make the money from podcast? One time I listened to podcast. It's so stupid I never listen to podcast again. It's called 뭐였지? Mai Tai? No. That is a podcast about the cocktail. You know what time it is? I'm Thai. No, that podcast for the Thai people. It's good, nah? No. Most stupid podcast is called It's Mime Time. So, Danny, what got you into comedy? Would you please share with us what got you into your lifelong pursuit of being a comic?
When I was like in high school, there was like this thing called Def Comedy Jam, right? And it was on cable. My friends would like have the tapes, and so we would watch it, or share it, you know. And I didn't even know that this was a job. I was like, "Yo, what is this? This is crazy," right? It kind of blew my mind to see, because like the only bits and pieces of stand up that I got to see when I was a kid was like the Tonight Show, and somebody did like 5 to 7 minutes. It's like, but like the Def Comedy Jam was like, oh, this is like raw and hardcore. And I saw people like Bernie Mac and Chris Tucker and whatever. And it kind of changed, like, what the fuck is this? I didn't even know it was a job, really. The summer between high school and college, my friends dared me to do stand up. And, when you're like one of those like young, like fucking macho dudes, you're like, yo, fuck it, man. Wherever, pick a spot, I'll cut them, do it. Right. And so that's what happened. And so I remember going on stage for the first time. It was the summer of 2000. Long story short, like the response was good. And I got bit by the comedy bug in the sense of like, I experienced the high that I've never felt before. And I think that was 21 years now, right? So like I've 21 years of trying to search to chase the high, so to speak, of the crowd and the reaction, the responses. So that's what I was doing in college. And then I remembered the one special that made me go, holy shit, like this is amazing, was Dave Chappelle's Killing Them Softly special, which I would say is up there as like, an influential one for me. And then I was like, wow, that shit's amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was telling like fucking fart dick jokes in the beginning. I kind of still am sometimes, but like the type of stuff that Dave was doing on that on that special just made me go, what the fuck? And so I remember, I was doing it throughout college. I was already like a regular at the Laugh Factory in college in LA. And then, I got a job as a business consultant, but even as a consultant, I would take off from work and then go to the club to do stand up and then come back. And then I would get like a small role here on Mad TV while I'm working as a consultant and then come back. And then I just realized that like, if I want to do this, if I want to, like, I didn't want to regret me being just like a regular civilian and be, and then see like the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I didn't want that. You know what I mean? And so I quit my job and then pursued stand up full time. And when was it? 2007, I think, was when I started full time.
That's fucking amazing, man. Since 2007. And are you homeless now?
No. I mean,
are you a failure at life now?
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, like the first goal for every like comedian is like to quit their day job.
Right.
And like being able to make a living doing stand up or, entertainment, something entertainment related. So there's a lot of, for me, like what I did was I booked a handful of commercials every year, like national commercials. And then that would basically pay the bills, right? And then stand up would also like...
you would book a commercial? What do you mean by that?
So like, like go on auditions and then be on a bunch of national commercials for Bud Light or whatever.
So you got on some like national commercials for some big products and then that was able to pay?
Yeah, I think I
Oh.
did about 15 national commercials, and then a lot of like local and whatever internet only ones and stuff like that.
Mm.
But commercials in the U.S. because of the union, they pay. There's residuals. So
Mm.
like I know people that like got paid like 60K because that commercial ran forever. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Mm.
it's been playing for 2 years now. The person's probably getting 60K off of it, right?
Mm,
And so like
nice.
yeah, that kind of stuff like pay the bills. I would do like college tours. I would do like army base tours. Just I would gig, and so that and just commercials, little parts here and there in sitcoms. Like whatever I can do, kind of help pay the bills. I For 10 years actually, from 2007 to 2017, I was doing stand up in the U.S. I would travel, do gigs in Asia, Korea, and all over the place. For 10 years, that's what I was doing. And getting by. Like all the bills were paid. I wasn't, there's some years you make a shit ton of money and some years you don't. And so like, it was that kind of lifestyle for 10 years. And then I just decided, you know what, I needed a break. And so I wanted not a break, but I was kind of getting burnt out because like, yeah, I was paying the bills, but I felt like my career was like at a standstill. And instead of being like angry about it and bitter about it, maybe I need a few years to just kind of have a new perspective in life. And that's why I decided to move to Korea, because there's a handful of English speaking stand-up scenes all over Asia. Like, Malaysia has a few comedy clubs. Hong Kong has a comedy club. Singapore has a handful of venues. I've done gigs in Guam and Saipan. So I figured for 2 years, just like kind of on the weekends or whatever, or like travel and do gigs. And on the weekdays, just kind of experience Korea not as a visitor, but kind of as like I'm living here. You know what I mean? I'm learning about how to recycle properly in Korea.
Mm.
Whatever Korean shit is, right? And so that was the original plan. So when I first got here, for a handful of months, like on the weekends, I'd be in Thailand, I would be in Hong Kong, doing gigs. And
Telling fart and dick
then,
jokes all over the world, all over
yeah,
Asia.
yeah, yeah. And then, like as fate would have it, I was walking in Hongdae, and then there was, I saw somewhere on an easel saying that they're doing standing comedy, and I was like, what the fuck? So I saw these kids doing stand up in Korean, and I didn't even know it existed. After the show, I introduced myself and I told them basically what they were doing wrong.
Your shit
And they did,
sucks.
well, not even that. It's just like they didn't get it. They didn't get what the fun, like what I realized is that there is nothing to look at for them to learn what stand up is. You know what I mean? Like right now, like there's a Netflix special that just came out by a famous Korean comedian called Isugun. His name's Isugun, right? It's called Noonchi
Mm.
and and it came out like last week or 2 weeks ago, right?
Wow, I gotta check it out.
And I watched it. And I was like, oh, this is awful. It's fucking terrible, right? But I realized it's because they don't know what stand up is. They just see it as you standing on stage and trying to make people laugh. I mean, fundamentally, yeah, that's what it is. But then there's so many techniques to it that they don't know. And so like when people want to learn stand up in Korea, they'd have to learn it through Netflix or through YouTube,
Mm.
but they're at the mercy of bad subtitles or just not understanding why this shit works in America, why people are laughing here. And so that's what I was trying to tell them. I was like, yo, man, like that's not working because of X, Y, and Z. And so they were like polite kids. They're like, oh, okay, thank you so much. But then I could see it in their eyes, like, who is this motherfucker, right? So I saw it and I was like, oh, you know what? Can I do it next week with you guys? And they were like, yeah, sure. And my Korean is not fluent at all. It still isn't, but it was worse than it is now. I was fortunate that the first time I did a set in Korean, the reaction was very, very good. And so after that, like I was kind of changing my plans a little bit or a lot. Now my goal is to see if I can help establish this stand-up scene in Korean where people can make a living doing this. Similarly to me back home, where it's not like some of them might get famous or whatever, but at the very least, if they can pay their bills telling jokes, then I've succeeded, and it's time for me to go back home. That's the plan currently.
Well, that's fucking cool, man. I mean, the whole journey, all the way from, you getting your consultancy job, and then, you hustling in your suit to get to the venue and tell jokes in your suit, and then go back to work, and then
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
I did that for 3 years. Like I barely slept for 3 years, right? Just kind of like leaving the office, telling the jokes, going back to the office. You know what I mean? Like, and just kind of living that dual life and hanging on to a thread. And I mean, like there was like one person that really pushed me to quit my job to do this full time is a comedian named Bobby Lee. And I've met Bobby a handful of times just doing stand up, you know what I mean? And Bobby basically tells me this, and I put it in a web series I did 10 years ago called K-Town Cowboys. But he truly said to me, he goes, Danny, there's two types of people that get on TV. Really good looking people and fucking mutants. You're a mutant, my friend. You know, you look like a human thumb. Like the way he was like, but instead of getting offended by it, I was like, all right, well, he was like, yeah, you should quit or you should do this full time. That's kind of he was one of the big factors. I mean, he got me on Mad TV. He got me an agent. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's awesome,
he didn't
man.
just say, he didn't say, hey, just quit and then leave. He helped me in the first steps. I mean, I'm fortunate. You know what I realized is that I'm fortunate to have met a lot of people, successful people along the way when I first started out that kind of helped me get through and kind of survive and just learn the business or learn stand up. You know what I mean? Like
I
Joe
love
Coy.
Bobby Lee. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, Joy Coy. You met him?
Told me. Yeah, I mean when I was doing the Laugh Factory, he was there all the time. It was before he got like super famous.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I remember I was like, I was going on stage in my work clothes, my consultant gig clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, yo, what the fuck? Like, don't dress like that. And I go, why? And then he was telling me, like, when somebody, like, if a casting director is in the audience, no matter how funny you are, they're going to look at the way you dress and just put you in that kind of shit. So you're going to always be dressed like that. You know what I mean? If you get a gig, So, like, he was like, yeah, don't dress like that. He was telling, in terms of comedy, he was like, yo, man, get to the punchline faster. You're setting it up too long and not being funny. You know what I mean? So, like, those were like the little things that like Joe would tell me. Bobby would, like help me. There's a lot of, comics that have given me nuggets of advice that like, that have helped me.
Yeah. And see, that's why I stuck around for the scene as long as I did. And, just because I just love that energy. And I love that these guys, the local stand-up comedy scene here in Seoul, 2012 to maybe 2014-ish, like I made a lot of good friends and we had a bunch of laughs and good times at open mics and stuff. I just like that energy. I just like, being around a bunch of guys who like to tell their jokes. Like then they're serious about it too. Like they want to improve and they're a little autistic about it at times. And then I miss it sometimes myself. I'm curious, in your consultancy job, like what was like the main thing that you consulted on, gave other businesses advice on and improve their revenue? I was just a little curious.
So the official kind of job title, I guess, is valuation consultants. So we are valuing intangible assets. Like, for example, let's say Nestle is trying to, this actually happened. Nestle bought Jenny Craig. You remember Jenny Craig?
Yes.
Jenny Craig's that dieting whatever program.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so how are you going to value Jenny Craig? Right. There's not just like sales and whatever revenue numbers, but there's value in the name. So like, in like trademark, how do you value that? How do you value non-competes like with experts in the business or whatever? Like, you know what I mean? Like in the company. So all those factors are factored into valuing a company like Jenny Craig. And then if you were hired by Nestle, then you'd be like, hey, we believe that, this is the right fee. You know what I mean? And from a tax point of view, like this is what the number should be on your papers, on your tax papers. You know what I mean? So that kind of situation. So there's a lot of acquisitions that some are huge and some are not so huge. I mean, I remember when I first started at the company, I had to go to Seattle because AT&T bought out a group called Singular. I was there for like 6 months working, doing some valuation, doing shit like that.
And did you find that work meaningful?
I don't know about meaningful. It did pay well. It wasn't like difficult work. I mean, like if I never had to, maybe stand up is a curse in the sense of if I never did it, or if I did it that summer and I bombed on stage and I was like, oh, I don't like this feeling. And if that was the case, I might have never ever gotten here. Right. And then I would have continued to be in that world of finance. My life would have been different. But I call it a curse because no matter, it wasn't a fun job, but how many jobs are really fun, right? So like some people just do it for the paycheck, make the money. I mean, it is what it is, right? So without stand up, I'm sure I would have just sucked it up and lived been a life in finance, right? But then like as I was doing the consultant gig, I was always getting pulled every day by the stand up stuff or the entertainment stuff. And so I didn't want to regret it. And that's why I quit to do this full time, because like there's a difference between doing it as a hobby versus doing it as a job, right? Like it's kind of like you visiting Korea and, the partying and the drinking versus you living here, right? And it's totally different things, right? So that's kind of the difference, I think, between like stand up being a hobby that you do on the side and stand up being a source of paying the bills. That's how I see my life being different.
Yeah, there's a difference between going on vacation and then living and working somewhere for real.
Right.
It's like the difference between an affair and a one night stand and a marriage.
Right,
long life-term commitment. And that's how I feel about my commitment to this podcast, in a way that's just like, no, this is not a hobby. I still need to do other things to say pay the bills, but like I'm really committed to this. Like for me, like this is something I'm in for the long haul. And that means also like giving up other things, right? Just like you giving up your 6-figure consultant job to become a world-class bum. I will try to join you in the world-class bum category by just, I have to sacrifice other things, other hobbies or things that I could do. Because sometimes, I have friends who work in, like a blockchain company or cryptocurrency or finance. I've met many awesome, wonderful, talented professionals who are successful in their field. And sometimes like they have job offerings, and sometimes like, Mom, you should apply for this internship. So sometimes I think, oh, like I would be cool to go into finance, right? Like it would actually, because it'd be well paid and whatever. I could wear suits and go to a nice office and like meet international people and chupte, like take them out to parties and then like learn contracts and all this stuff, like the business world. And, like there's a part of me that wants that. But then I think if I were to go into that, I would still feel the pull of Mime Time, of this podcast, of like having these interesting conversations, because I still feel I still have like the pain of my past. And I know there's a lot of people going through similar stuff. So I want to be like a healer. So even if I make a lot of money, even if I go into say something like consultancy, and sometimes consultancy, particularly as coming into my mind a lot, like what if I became a consultant? Because like I'm a big fan of Sam Ovens. He's consulting.com, like one of the world's top consultancy dudes who's like a millionaire. He's like very focused and he teaches other people to start their own consultancy. So sometimes I'm like, damn, maybe I should save up money and do a course and then try to find a consultancy for some niche, right? Some business here. Like I could make a lot of money. I have a great network. Like if I just apply myself, I could do it. And then I could become a millionaire too. But then I'm just like, no, but then even if I do that, and I'm sure it'd be great and meet a lot of people, make a lot of money, blah, 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 I would still want to come back to this thing. I would still, because this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I can't shut the fuck up about in the end. And so it's about sacrificing, giving up other things, like whether it's going into career or leaving a career, either going into potential career path or leaving a lucrative career path, or like hobbies. Like I realized, oh, this is what I want to do. And I want to ask you like a couple things. Like, do you have any regrets going into comedy? Do you have those voices of self-doubt? Like, did you have that in the beginning? Does it ever come up? How do you deal with those thoughts?
If I thought only about myself, if I was very selfish about it, then I have no regrets, right? But if I start thinking about family, like my parents, then I do have some regrets. And the reason why is because you want to take care of them. I mean, they're at an age, my parents are at an age where, they should be retired, but they're not. My dad isn't, and so like, the idea of like me not being able to fully financially take care of him right now is probably one of the biggest regrets. As me being as honest as possible,
Damn.
right?
Mm-mm.
But if I'm being like completely selfish and just thinking about myself, then I have no regrets. Like what's the point of being the richest person in the cemetery? It don't matter, right? Like I've gotten to travel the world doing what I do. I might not make the same amount of money as if I stayed in my former job, but I got to do some crazy shit. There's this old blues singer named Howlin' Wolf, right? And then there's a song he has called "Going Down Slow," right? And in the lyrics, he's like, I'm paraphrasing. So basically, I've lived a life where I'm not a millionaire, but I've kind of partied like them and lived like them. So,
Mm.
I spent and had experiences as if I did make all that money, right? And so meaning like I lived a full life and a very crazier life. So, for me, like I don't regret the decision. But I mean, let's be honest, man. Like I'm 38, going on 39 this year, and like when you see people, your friends that of the same age or similar kind of brackets, so to speak, and, they have like a house and they have two kids and whatever. Like, it makes you think like, did I fuck up? As of now, the answer I always have doubts, but I'm trying to believe that I didn't fuck up.
Yeah, well, I think you've done a great job until now, with all your adventures and the fact that you've been able to sustain yourself this long.
Mm.
I think that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of initiative that most people just don't have the balls to do. And I'm so glad that you're really honest about it. Like, yeah, selfishly, like I have no regrets. I've been able to travel the
Mm.
world and tell fart and dick jokes here or there, like a
Mm,
world
mm,
class bum, which is
mm,
honestly like that's the dream. Like, I would love to do that. Even if I wasn't doing comedy, I would just, if I had the time and money, like pre-COVID, then yeah, I would love to fly to all the different places, just make friends with stand-up comedy and just go to stand-up comedies every single city that I go to. So when I
yeah.
travel, if I know stand-up comedy, I do like to go to see a show wherever I go, whatever country I'm in. So I think, you've traveled far and you've trailblazed, especially as a Korean American comedian who's going to Asia and traveling all these places. I mean, you're trailblazing not just for yourself, but for like maybe other Korean American creatives who want to travel the world or explore some craft, whatever their passion might be. And again, like reconciling that with, yeah, you want to take care of your parents too. That's really rough because I feel the same way. I want to take care of my mom. And the problem there maybe is, if you had gone the other way, and let's say you bombed your very first set and like that woman was like, oh, he's Chinese, he ain't funny. And then it turned out to be true that maybe you weren't Chinese, but you weren't funny. And
Mm,
and then you just stuck with you're like, this sucks. I'm just sticking with my consultancy job. And let's say you did that, but then you just stuck out for years, but then maybe there's a part of you that feels missing. Or actually, let me take that back. Let's say you enjoyed it, but then you just stuck with a consultancy job for years on end, and you took care of your parents, but there was a
mm.
part of you that was regretting not being able to do your comedy in America and Asia, and you wouldn't have had all these experiences. So maybe life is about like picking your regrets. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but I
Yeah, I mean,
that's a hard decision.
I mean, it's, like at this point, like, so since I started doing it in 2000 and I've done it for 21 years. So I've done stand up for more than half my life, right? You know what I mean? And
Mm,
so now at this point, there's nothing, it's hard to give that up. You know what I mean? A
sure.
part of me is kind of like, there's that finish what you started mentality, right? And
Mm,
so what's the finish? The finish is, to be honest, it's like making I don't need to be famous, but being able to make a living doing stand up. There's so many stand up comedians that you probably never heard of are making $100,000-$200,000 a year doing stand up.
in Korea,
You know what I mean? No, 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 no. In the U.S. I
United
don't. I don't
States.
want to. I don't give a fuck about being famous or making money in Korea because, especially in the entertainment business, man, like the microscope that these celebrities are under, like it's ridiculous. Like,
Mm.
and I go, I'm willing to be under that microscope if I'm making a shit ton of money, but I would say, like, I believe that on average, Korean celebrities make about maybe a tenth or a 20th of what US celebrities make. So like I always say, like an A-list celebrity here makes about what a C-D-list celebrity in America makes, right?
Mm.
So I go, I'd much rather be a C-D-list celebrity than a A-list celebrity here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you'd have like more freedom to say whatever you want, and
Yeah.
yeah, man. And I think, I don't know, I would say you made the right decision. If not only, I mean, of course, it's hard. I can't imagine what your mom felt when you told her you're quitting your six-figure job to do what, stand-up comedy, and that now, and then you're doing it in the country that they left. It's like, why
Yeah,
did they?
yeah, yeah.
What? Why you're a terrible, ungrateful son. After all the sacrifice that your parents did, all the hard work and saving up the money and making sure you got educated, and you give that up just to go back to the country that they came from and make just do standing comedy, right? I can't imagine how they must feel.
Well, I think they also feel they feel bad because they didn't pay a dime of my education.
Mm.
I mean, maybe up until like junior high, but after that, I paid for everything. And so even college was on me. I had to work to pay to go to SAT Hagwon. That was on me. Like all of that was through my own money, right? Obviously, they fed me and clothed me or whatever, right? But then like they were financially struggling, so I did it all on my own. And so like my parents always, they every now and again they feel like they tell me they regret not being able to financially take care of me at the time. But I was like, I didn't need it, like, you know what I mean? I was gonna do it on my own anyway. It don't matter, right? So like I think there's always that. I think Korean parents, it's not about like, my parents are not against the stand up cause that it's not like reputable or whatever. I think what their fear is that they lived as immigrants with a lot of instability, right? My parents owned a liquor store, right? So like the instability of running a volatile liquor store with with fucking robberies and dangerous shit happening, right? And so they believe that like being a doctor or a fucking lawyer or whatever those is a stable job where you can, and stability doesn't necessarily equal happiness, but to them it's less stressful, right? That's what they, I think, believe. And that's why they know that no matter what, there might be a chance where I make a shit ton of money and I'm like famous and I'm on TV and, I'm on Korean newspapers and whatnot and be like, oh, I'm in Korean variety shows. But how long does that last? That shit don't last forever, right? So like there, inevitably, this is not a stable profession. And that's why I think they were more worried and concerned about me taking this path as opposed to like being like, now I can't brag to my parents because you're not a doctor or you're not a consultant or you're not a fucking investment iBank analyst or whatever it is, right? Like it wasn't that. It was just more like, basically, why are you going into a job where it's going to be fucking hard? You know what I mean? I tell them, you guys struggled and busted your ass so that we get to choose what we want to do. You didn't really have the choice to bust your ass, but I do have a choice. So that's what I try to tell them.
That's so hard. I mean, what I mean is, I think this whole issue of Asian immigrants or immigrants in general, but especially Korean American immigrant families, they, our parents' generation, they all want us to get the education and yet to become lawyers and doctors. And my brothers are doctors, funny enough. So I'm kind of black sheepish, coming to Korea after dropping out of college and not, and then like vagabonding, going to open mics, right? And like,
Right.
going partying and then later becoming a club party promoter. Like I've had my fun in my 20s. I think a lot more than my brothers. So life is unfair. Like I didn't go into the education, become a doctor like them, but I've had also my general adventures throughout Asia, having a good time. So I'm very grateful for the way that my life has played out 100%. And I'm very grateful that I could come to Korea. I feel sometimes the struggle, right? It's like the parents want you to do a good job, a stable job, but there are so many of us like you and me, like we are creatives or we want to pursue an art, right? There's so many people out there who like are really passionate about art or comedy or music. They struggled. And let me try to Chungni this. Like, our parents did all the hard work and sacrifice so we could get educated, expecting us to get high paid jobs. And like, we're all supposed to be lawyers, doctors, professionals, and whatnot, in finance or whatever. But there are so many of us who are creatives who don't want to go down that path. We want to be like artists, painters, musicians, rappers, comedians, performers, you know? And I remember seeing David Choi, right, the musician, when he was like one of the first YouTube musicians, and people like him are trailblazers. I was just like, oh, you can be, you know, Asian and like perform beautiful art that people are willing to pay money for. That back in the day, like that was huge. And now like there's a fucking 88 Rising now. So, and we, especially now, the teenagers these days, like they see all that. We didn't have that when, because there was no Rich Brian and there was no, I don't know, Joji, there was no Jay Park, like being like, you know, living that awesome, successful rapper lifestyle, you know, making like putting out their art and making lots of money. Like we didn't have that when we were kids, but now with the kids now, they're going to see that even more, right? You know, hopefully maybe their parents are going to be like our age. So then we've already made our money or whatever. And then so we can tell like the younger kids, like, yeah, go do whatever you want with your life. I think that's what my brothers are going to be with their kids.
Right. I mean, for me personally, and what I would tell, I mean, when people ask me about like they have interest in doing stand up, you know, I go, yo, man, this job is tough. Right. And I go, you know, like when you see a comedian on Netflix, their first special, so to speak, in the US, not in Korea, because they're giving out Netflix specials to celebrities like it's fucking, you know, like it's a gift. It's ridiculous in Korea. But in the US, like that's more than 10 years of doing stand up 4 or 5 times a week, every day. You know, the first special takes 10 years minimum. There's people, Bobby Lee doesn't have a stand up special. He's been doing stand up longer than I have. He's probably done it for 30 years. You understand what I mean? And that fool is killing it on stage, right? So like my whole talk is that you see the finished product, but you don't see all the, you say, the open mics in the first few years, to like the bar gigs that, you know, in the middle of fucking nowhere, to like the college gig, you know what I mean, at the cafeteria at noon. Well, nobody knows that there's a stand-up show going on. You know what I mean? And you're fucking fighting over the blender that's going on in the back because somebody's making a smoothie. Right. And to me, you don't see that. You'll never see that. Right. That's why when I see open micers, I don't even, okay, let's go back. I don't consider, when people go, I'm a stand-up comic, and I mean, I'm from a town of phonies in LA, right? Where like, I'm an actor, I'm a model, I'm a whatever. I go, yo, what the fuck does your W-2 say? You know what I mean? Like, what
shit
pays your bills? Right? Yeah, cut that shit out. You're not a stand-up comic. You know, you're a goddamn waiter. Nothing wrong with being a waiter, right? But what I'm saying is like, when, you know, like open mics, to me, you guys are amateurs. There's nothing wrong with being amateurs. Everyone needs to start, and it's a small community. But if you've been to any open mic, it's almost the same all around the world. It's awful. Right? Open mics are awful, right? It's worse back home because like all the comics, or almost all the people in the audience, are waiting to go up. So they're not even paying attention to what the fuck's going on stage. They're just like trying to like memorize their materials. They're blankly staring at something going, I wonder if this joke is going to hit. Right. So, and I'm not like looking down. I'm not trashing open mic. What I'm saying is that like, there's levels to this. And then people that think that they're funny, think that they're going to pass those levels fast. You know, I go, if you really want to do it, you know, you got to buckle up for some bullshit, right? For a long time.
Yeah. And that goes for any craft or any passion.
Yeah.
Like you have to, you're going to have the nights where you fucking kill it. And like the whole, you know, venue is just roaring with laughter and you're the fucking shit and everyone loves you and wants to suck your cock because of your dick and fart jokes. And then there's maybe days and nights when
by the way, wait, time out. I don't tell dick and fart jokes. Right? Like, you know.
I'm just kidding.
That's downplaying you, or as that's you know, it's not just dick and fart jokes, right? It's kind of insulting. I'm way better than that. But what I'm saying is that that's the thing. Is like I tell people this: no matter how good you are or how bad you are on stage tonight, your life don't change, right? You go on stage and you fucking kill it, right? You're still going to the same shitty apartment, right? You know, You bomb on stage, you're still going to that same shitty apartment. Your life don't change, right? The only thing that you do is because everyone is winning the lottery mentality where you're just like, oh man, if there was someone like an agent or like an exec that was at the audience that's going to like help my career. Nah, man, if that's, again, I go, don't do stand up to be famous. Do stand up because you love it. You know what I mean? Because if you're trying to be famous, I'm not helping you because you're going to leave once you get famous. What the fuck? Why am I helping you then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you got to do what you love, even if it doesn't make you money in the beginning. And even if it doesn't make you famous, like it's just like, if no one else was to see you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's,
so like,
to me, that'll make you do it longer as opposed to like, oh man, I'm going to try stand up for a year. You're not going to go anywhere. Like it's very rare to see like a prodigy stand up comedian. You know what I mean?
They all put the time in.
A lot of time.
Yeah. Everyone, the most successful people in the world, they started from somewhere and they just put the time in and they focused on that. They cut out the distractions. They left a consultancy job or, they gave up some hobbies or whatever. They moved to a new city. They had to do it and they were consistent for years. And so like, that's what I'm doing now with like my podcast. Like I'm going all in as much as I can, when I don't need to do some other work to put the lights on. And I'm grateful for those opportunities as well. But oh man, there's like so much more I want to talk with you, but I think we should wrap this up with like one or two more things. What would you tell other people who maybe, they have a nice paying job or whatever, and they have this stable career, but they're really passionate about doing something else, whether it's painting or music or comedy? What would you tell them?
Don't do what I did.
In the way that you did it?
Yeah. I mean, like I would say do more like the Ken Jeong route, right? Where Ken's a friend, right? And so Ken was a doctor, right? Successful, making good money, whatever. He quit or not quit. He's technically still a doctor, right? But he stopped being a doctor, so to speak, or putting on the coat after he got like a big break. You know what I mean? He quit after Knocked Up, the movie Knocked Up. So he was working, right? And so to me, that's what I would say. Like, do it as a hobby for sure. Ken was doing it on the side, but then like whatever your passion is, you should definitely do it as a hobby. I think the smart thing to do is like give up your successful job when you have something lined up. You know what I mean? I didn't have anything lined up and I just quit, right? But then it's kind of like you having a job and then you have another job offer for you to jump ship, right? But if you don't and you just go, that I don't suggest because that's it's super rough.
Yeah, I can't imagine the challenge you put yourself through, or so many people do. Like, oh, I want to start my dream business or whatever, or my, I want to be rich. So I'm going to quit my job. It's like, the really good advice that I think I've heard is like, don't do that. Don't quit your day job to pursue your passions. Everyone's case by case difference, but what I'm doing is like I'm still doing work to put the lights on, but like when I'm not doing the work, then I'm going all in on this as much as I can. Right. So like, nobody has to worry. Like, I'm not like, just like, yep, I'm just going to do this for years without making money because I'm all about the hustle and sacrificing everything else. Like, no, like I need to pay my rent. I need to pay my bills and whatever. I think being super focused as much as I can is what's going to get me to the path that I want. So thanks for being honest and sharing that. Yeah. If you have a career, like don't just give it up right away, but make plans to like transition so that when you have like your foot in both doors or whatever you call it, then you can make that transition a bit more gently. You don't need to have this whole dramatic thing like I quit my job and I lived in my parents' garage for a year and I didn't know, I don't think that's necessary. Plan it out a bit better.
Or have a lot saved up for the rainy few years that's inevitably going to happen.
And to wrap this up, what would you say to those who are, just feeling lost, coming back a bit to the beginning of our talk, like people who just feel kind of lost about identity or lost about what they want to do with their life. And, maybe they don't know who they are, like me when I was 10 or 15. Like, what would you say to those kids out there?
I want to say it's not about when you start, it's about where you end, right? So like, for college kids, like, oh, I should go in with knowing what I want to do. That way I can pick my major. Dude, you could switch majors all you want. And after college, you you pick this job that you thought you wanted, you realize it ain't the shit, so you change jobs. Like all that is irrelevant, unnecessary. So if you're young, just fucking take all the lumps and experience life, right? And then when it comes to like identity crisis, I don't know what to tell you. I'd be like, to me personally, I go, voice it out, but suck it up. You know what I mean? Like, don't be a fucking victim. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I like that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna happen, and depending on where you are in the world and what your surroundings are, like, your situation is gonna be different from mine. But like, dude, I fought every day. You know what I mean? Like, it was a rough ass town. You know what I mean? And so, like, to me, I think it's the idea of, I don't want to say do what you want, you know what I mean? Or do what you don't know what you love to begin with when you're younger, right? So like, but I want to do this, like, because some people want to be like, oh, I want to be a baseball player. Yeah, fucking go play baseball. You know what I mean? But unless you have talent in it, let's put it this way. When I was younger, I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. Right. And I stopped growing at the age of 12. I'm 5'7". So at 12, I was like, oh shit. Like at 11, I was like, oh, I might get there. I was bigger than the fools around me or whatever, and I stopped growing. Now, but did you gave up on your dreams of being an NBA basketball player? Yeah, absolutely. I'm fucking 5'7". You know what I mean? Like that's my point, is that like, you could still love playing basketball in the rec leagues or whatever, or, but that's my point, is that like, you have to have some sort of talent in wherever you're going to go. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to always say do what you love like that. You know what I mean? Do it. But some people, no, but I have a passion for drugs. Well, no, then don't do it. Right? You know what I mean? So like, it's always going to be that way. So like, I mean, for all of y'all listening out there, I'm sure you guys have a good head on your shoulders, right? So like, to be honest, nobody knows what the right answer is, right? Like, I want to end with this. I remember when I was a kid and I looked at 40-year-olds, I was like, oh, 40-year-olds have it all figured out. Adults know all the fucking answers. They got it all. They got it all. They have it all figured out, right? And then I asked my dad, I hit that age where I was like almost 40, and I asked my dad, hey, when you were my age, like, did you figure it out? And he's like, no, I didn't. I was fucking scared all the time. I don't know what the fuck was going on, right? So nobody knows what the right answer is, right? It's just, us trying to figure it out, right? So whatever, if you're lost, we all kind of are, you know what I mean? The older you are, maybe that you have a little bit more of, what you think is right. But in all honesty, all of it is dog shit. So just, you're kind of on your own, but just, make sure you have a good circle around you.
Yeah, it's so funny because when we're kids, we think that the adults all have their shit together. And then we become adults and realize no one has their shit together.
Yeah. But, but I asked my parents, like, did you have your shit together? Like, no. And so it's sad. It's that, like, nobody has their shit together. We just think we do. Yeah, and some people
you're not alone.
So you're not alone. So fucking don't do anything drastic that's going to hurt you, harm you. Everything else, go for it.
Yeah, be a good person, and be kind and humble and hardworking, and you'll be able to. You could surround yourself with people who will help you out in life. Like when you, as you mentioned in your TED talk, like Bobby Lee and your friends, like daring you to do comedy, like all these auspicious things, and like good influences around you, right? Just be a good person and a humble person, and don't take these connections for granted, because like they'll change your life.
Yeah.
Danny, thanks so much for your time today, bro. I really appreciate it. This hour and a half just flew by.
No problem,
there's so
brother.
much more I want to talk to you about, but we'll maybe save that for a future episode. Oh, if people want to follow you or reach out to you or like see one of your shows, what should they do?
Just follow me on Instagram, Danny Cho Comedy. That's the same on YouTube. I have a podcast with my friend Bobby Choy, who is a singer-songwriter. But yeah, just search Danny Cho Comedy and the Noonchi Podcast. And by the way, if you didn't know, Bobby too dropped out of Gordon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way. Yeah, I'm enjoying your Noonchi Podcast with Bobby, and I'm just like, I would love to talk with him as well. Yeah, okay. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks a lot, Danny, Korean American brother from another mother. Thank you so much, Mime Timers, for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. And all y'all, follow your dreams, but don't do what Danny did. Plan it out. Plan it out. Yeah. Danny, you're the man. So, fam, what about you? Do you have any regrets with your career path? Have you been stuck in a boring yet profitable career with regrets? Or did you become a starving artist with regrets? Or did you just Kenjung it out and transition from one stable, lucrative career into another that is actually more your dream, but still with regrets? Please give me your feedback at mime@mimetime.com. Just shoot me a cheeky email. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider supporting the show by subscribing on whatever platform you're using, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, etc. And consider leaving a positive review on what you got out of the show. And please share this episode with a friend who would get something out of it, even just a cheeky laugh. Have a great week, fam, and I'll talk to you next time. Mime time. Ah, yes, sir. That podcast is called the Mime Time. Oh, very, very stupid and dishonorable.